All right, hopefully y'all enjoyed page one. So let's get on to page two of the Louisiana Real Estate Commission's purchase agreement. Let me share the page and all right, so here we go. Page two. Again, when we start page two, make sure you have the property address and the date on top. It's important to have both of those on the top of every page. All right. In this second page, we are on page two. First thing is obviously the property description. The buyer agrees to buy the property at the municipal address. So, 123 Main Street. You'd have the same thing here, but you would put it into this section right here. Let's see. Oops. Into this line right here. Anyway, this line right here. How about that? Okay, so 123 Main Street, then city, come down, city, I guess city, state, and then zip. Of course, put the parish, Louisiana parish that you're working in, East Baton Rouge, Ascension, Livingston, whatever it is. Now, the legal description, the thing that they're looking for here, if this is just a typical subdivision, house purchase in a subdivision, let's say Shenandoah Estates. What I'm looking to write in here, lot number 255, Shenandoah Estates subdivision, and that's what I would put in this block here. If I had something different, something maybe needed a little more description, not everything is lot block. So you may have some other type of description here. Try to get as much information in there as you can. That will help the title attorney pinpoint the property that you're talking about. A lot of times, an address is going to be good, but if you can give a lot number or some other information on the parcel, name or something like that, be good. All right, so then the next line on line 5, we come into, here talking about, the dimensions of the property. So measuring approximately, you can put, if it was an acreage, you could put, 1.2 acres. Most of the time, if it's a subdivision lot, like my example in Shenandoah, it's probably going to be something like 80 by 140, and just simply 80x 140. So 80 by 140, something like that. A lot of times that information is available through the MLS listing that is in our multiple listing service. If it's not, there are other resources. You can go look at the tax records in Paragon. There's usually a general parcel boundary that you can look at and rely on it at least. But I would typically try to put something in here and not just leave it blank. It helps to define what is being sold. So when we start to get on the rest of this, line number 6. So let's read through this because there's some pretty important parts here. I think we'll probably spend a decent amount of time on this. The person is buying the property located at, as per record of title, including, so here's your key, including everything that follows this, all building structures, component parts, and all installed built-in permanently attached improvements, together with all fences, security systems, key security systems come up, all installed speakers that are mounted to the wall, those are considered fixtures, or installed sound systems. I would say here on the sound systems, if the buyer is asking, if the speakers are staying, the question is do the movable receiver components and base component, do those stay? And if the buyer wants them, then that's when I would come down to this other section and I would add in surround system receiver and base components to remain at no value. So I would add something like that in here to be sure that not only does it say speakers, but there's no question that the other stuff would stay as well. So I would add that to it. I don't want anybody to misinterpret or get a different viewpoint of what the buyer is really asking for. So when you're not sure, clarify it down here on these lines. That's why there's so many lines. Don't shortchange the buyer and skimp on being specific. Okay. So back to this, all landscaping, that means the rose bushes that those sellers planted 30 years ago and they just love them. Unless it's agreed upon, those bushes stay. They can't just go dig up bushes in the yard. They can't take the, satsuma trees and stuff like that. So all landscaping, outside TV antennas, satellite dishes, all installed or built-in appliances. This is another piece that I always want to be sure I cover with my buyers and tell them, point out the built-ins. The built-ins are typically, the stove, oven, dishwasher, a microwave if it is in fact built in. If it's a countertop or just sitting in a hole somewhere in the cabinet, it could easily be just picked up and unplugged and walked off with. Then I would not just assume it's staying, but built in. So, dishwashers are built in, stoves, ovens, especially wall ovens, and things like that. Things that are not built in, appliances like refrigerators, washer dryers, those are not built in. If your buyer wants those things, again, you're coming down here on these lines and you're writing in refrigerator, washer dryer to remain at no value. And you add it in, you be specific. All ceiling fans, air conditioning or heating systems, including window units. So if there's a window unit and if they're there when this contract is accepted, then they need to be there when we go to walk through and closing. So you may double down and ask the listing agent, or just make sure that the listing agent knows that these things are expected to remain. Again, more communication here on the front end, the better off you're going to be at walkthrough and closing. All bathroom mirrors, window coverings included, but not limited to blinds, drapes, curtains, window shades, window coverings, and all associated window covering hardware. Okay, here's the other one. This is another piece of this paragraph that gives everybody problems. The drapes and the window blinds, when you're showing the house and there's all these window coverings, it says window coverings included. It's not limited to these things. If there's other stuff and you're not sure, then add it down here. Again, adding it here on the front end clarifies what is being left, and it's going to be a whole lot easier to deal with on the front end than it is when you go do the walkthrough and they've pulled a couple Roman shades down and they're gone, or just something. There's always something. So be sure that you know what this is, that's covered in here, and be sure if there's any questionable items and you're not sure, then confirm it with the listing agent and be sure to write it in additionally if you need to. So go through the rest of this. I know in here it says something about installed generators. That's important. You got these generators that cost, $4, $5, $6, $10,000, or $13,000. Some of these things are really expensive. And if they're installed on the house, then they should be staying. According to this, they're fixtures. So read through this and be sure you understand what's in here, so that when you're counseling your buyers to write the offer, and when you're showing, when you see things, what's supposed to be staying and what's not. Now, I want to time out real quick. I should have said this in the very beginning. This video is in no way a substitution for you reading through this purchase agreement 4, 5, 6, 7 times and owning the language in it, so that you can know what it says, you can explain what the paragraphs are, to a person who doesn't know, and be clear and concise, and that there's no questions that they're going to have. So you want to be able to explain these by paragraph, and the only way to do that is to read over this a few times and ask questions. If something doesn't make sense, make a note out to the side on your paper, and let's sit down and talk about the exceptions. Most of this should be pretty explanatory, self-explanatory, but again, there's many years of experience can I could probably share a scenario that would help clarify something. So if you're not sure about something, mark it, circle it, and let's sit down and talk about it if we need to. Or we can do that on the phone if you've got something I can look at that you got questions about. We can certainly do it on the phone. So go through this a few times, but understand how that first section works. Okay. Now, if there was something that was considered a fixture that's up here, and the seller wants it, let's say it's the surround system and speakers, okay, that we talked about up here at the top. We talked about it here, and the seller says, no, they're my Bose speakers, my surround system. I'm taking that with me, and the listing agent reports that in the MLS listings, and you're like, okay, I told my buyer. The seller is keeping the sound system along with the speakers. So then I would write in here, in order to take it out of this paragraph, I would write installed speakers and surround system components do not remain. And that's what I would put right here. I'd put it on this line. Tell you what, sometimes this doesn't cut. So I would put it on this line. And that way it's excluded. The listing agent's not going to have to counter me, because I understood that the seller wanted to keep those. My buyer was fine with it, whatever. If something is said to be, the seller doesn't want to leave, well, that's their preference. If it's something the buyer says, no, I really want that, then don't exclude it. Ask for it in the contract, and negotiate that back and forth. But you'll let the seller's agent know that, hey, I know the seller said they wanted that surround system of speakers, but it's really important to my buyers, and we want it left in the contract with the house, and just so it's not automatic that if the seller wants to take something that they have to give it up. The buyer can ask for it for anything and all of this, and it's just up for negotiations. Okay. Pay the rest of this. We're talking about mineral rights. If the seller owns the mineral rights, let's assume they do, then the question is, what percent of the mineral rights will be retained by the seller? That's how this is worded. If the seller transfers any mineral rights, they are to be transferred without warranty, and then blank. So I'm going to say 0% of the mineral rights owned by the seller are to be reserved and retained by the seller. Okay. This may be something that the agent tells you the seller wants to keep all their mineral rights, or they're willing to give up 50% of them. That's all negotiable. Okay. But you do need your client to sign off. You do need your client to sign off as the buyer, and then the seller needs to sign off when they see this, and everyone's in agreement as to whatever percentage is being retained and or sold with the property. Price, line 42, should be fairly simple. You're just, the price, the offer that your buyer's willing to make. And that right here would be, you would write out the, $200,000 in long handwritten script, in longhand. And then here you would actually write the numerical numbers. Oops. Yeah, here you would write the numerical. So 200, comma 000. The act of sale. When do you want to close? This is something you're going to have to talk with your buyer about, and you're going to have to talk to their lender about if they're getting a loan. So when can the lender have the file ready to be approved and ready to close? And if they say, 30 days or 45 days, then you need to count out from today. We're in the middle of February. I would be putting something like the end of March here, somewhere around the end of March. I would pick a day in the middle of the week. Understand what I'm about to say. I like to close on Wednesdays because it's not too early in the week. So either Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then not on Fridays because everybody else tries to close on Fridays. And if anything goes wrong on a Friday, then nothing can happen until Monday. So in my scenario, if we're trying to close on a Wednesday and something happens with the loan approval and we get pushed back one day, well, then we're just closing on Thursday. And my buyer still has all of their plans for the weekend set up and ready to go. If that happens on a Friday and they can't move in until we finish closing on Monday, then everything they had planned for that weekend is messed up. So I like to close Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, preferably Tuesday or Wednesday. Thursday, if you had to, but I definitely don't like Mondays and Fridays. So for those reasons, you can call me. I'll give you plenty of stories about why. Just know that that's wisdom. All right, so you're just going to put the active sale. You're going to put that date. So let's pretend I'm going to put March 28th, 2023, and move on. Now, understand that in this paragraph, the sale is to be executed before settlement agent or notary chosen by the buyer. Chosen by the buyer. You may get into a situation where the listing agent wants to choose the title company. That is up to the buyer. They can agree to go close wherever, but ultimately in the way this is written, it's the buyer's choice. So I typically like to be in control of that and help my buyer choose a title company that we work with a lot so that we can, if we needed questions or something comes up, I feel like I'm going to get better service, then that's what I want to do. If it's a title company I've never heard of, one is you got to figure out, are they charging more than others? And then you don't have any rapport with them. It makes it harder to, call and get answers and get callbacks. So I like to help my buyer choose someone that we have a relationship with already. And that, again, if we need something, we're going to get the service that I expect. Okay. All right. End of page 3. That was the end of page 2. Thank y'all and see y'all on the next page.